Witch Hat Atelier. Should you watch it or not? Short answer, hell fucking yes. So the story is about a world where magic can be used by anyone. You don't need to be anyone special. All you need is pen and paper. But because of problems that have happened in the past, they essentially had to gatekeep magic for most people. So now only a select few people can use magic. These people are called witches, and they're trying to basically maintain the use of magic for the common good. And in this world, there's this girl named Coco. And Coco is presented to us initially as a normal young girl who has a very passionate love for magic. But then some things happen, and then she gets thrust into the world of magic by becoming an apprentice. And throughout the show, she's shown as someone who always tries to maintain a cheerful attitude, but she also does carry a lot of emotional weight with her, as you'll see from the first couple episodes. And the show does a great job of showing the struggle that she has in maintaining her positive attitude, but also the massive amounts of stress she's carrying. She's a real person. Some shit did happen, and they show moments where it really does affect her. And I really like how, I guess, how layered they make that out to be, because um, you know it's a child character, but she's treated and shown like an adult in the way in the emotional complexity department, right? She experiences these very real struggles, and it shows it shows the way she deals with it, and in a lot of ways it kind of is a great lesson to us adults on how we can also maintain a positive attitude in these with whatever we're carrying with us. There's this character named Agate or Agat, who is shown as cocky, prideful, and a bit of a tryhard. But then there are moments where her and the rest of the apprentices are put into these life-threatening situations. And who is it that kind of comes to the charge and tells everyone what they should do, and executes it well? It's Agat. It kind of shows that she kind of has reason for being that prideful, because she is the person that you can I guess come to rely on in these situations when it's just her and the rest of the young crew. Um, Initially, I thought she was just supposed to be this bully character to Coco, since Coco is an outsider. She isn't really going through the process of becoming a witch in the orthodox way, and Agat is someone who is really by the books, and is all about you know the proper way of doing magic. The show does a great job of showing her in more situations, diving into her character, and showing that she also has some own emotional weight that is kind of driving a lot of her personality. And so I'm really curious to see where the show decides to go with that, because there seems to be a lot to unpack there with her own personal struggle. And then there's the character Keyfree, who is the master to all these young apprentices in Coco, and he's also kind of shown to be this parental figure. But if I had one word to describe him throughout the show, it is scene stealer. Certainly, there are some scenes that Keyfree is driving that are just you just cannot look away. Particularly in episode 5. Um, I'll just mention that the show is kind of a slow burn. If you're expecting like fast-paced action in every single episode, that's not what the show is for. But in episode 5, there's a sequence where Keyfree takes the stage, and it is one of the coolest sequences I've seen in anime in a long time. It is so bloody cool. Initially, you might just expect him to be kind of two-dimensional, like he's just this very cool, calm, collected, and wise parental figure to these apprentices. Um, but later on, the show shows there's also a very mysterious side to him too. There are moments where it reveals something deeper about what he's going after and what he wants, and we're not sure what it is, and we're not exactly sure if the way he's going about it is morally good. There are some questionable moments with Keyfree in the center, and it kind of pulls us along, and we wanting to find out like who is this really cool and just like almost perfect person, like who is he really, what is he really after. And so I think the show does a great job in not just making him a two-dimensional person. He has a lot of mystery to him that I can't wait to unpack. There are some other side characters too, who they don't give a lot of screen time to, which is fair. It's mostly just Coco, Agat, and Keyfree, but they're all given their own moments too to display their own personality, their own struggles, and I think the show does a relatively good job of maintaining these side characters. Solid group of cast all around. I really enjoyed seeing all of them on screen. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the magic system, which I think is really cool and also really intuitive. So the way magic works in this world is all you really need is a pen and paper. You draw certain symbols and it produces a certain kind of magic. There are also some really intricate elements too, such as if you draw a line too long in a symbol, it's going to make the spell shoot off in a very imbalanced direction. Different kind of inks will have different kind of effects on the spell, and also you can stack spells on top of each other, which makes for some really cool solutions. It is really cool to see how the young group performs when faced in these life or death situations. Uh, for example, in one of the episodes, there is a really big dragon, and it's just the young apprentices who have to deal with it. And initially, they try to deal with it in the expected way by fighting it using fire magic and whatnot, but it isn't working. And I'll say the solution that they come to is something I think only children can think of, and it's something uh, that becomes really cool once you see it work, and it becomes a really cathartic and enjoyable moment. So really cool on that. I also have to talk about the animation for a second. I think first of all, the animation is really gorgeous throughout. When you have these really high stake and high action set pieces, the animation is so cool. I got to talk about episode 5 again because it is an animation masterpiece, really. It is so cool. And then when you get to the more subtle moments like facial expressions, it becomes really detailed and nuanced and conveys the emotional complexity of the character so well. For example, there's a certain near death experience that Coco and friends go through, and afterwards, she feels really guilty about. And initially, she tries, laughing it off and pretending she's okay and whatnot. But then this laugh, they show turns into a very powerful and strong sob, and just a whole release of emotions. And it's so convincing the way they portray this transition, and it really adds to the effect that this young child character we're following has a lot of depth to her, right? It's like watching an adult character in a way. Not saying that only adults can show these emotions, but it's just something we don't normally see from these young characters on screen. There are also some important themes that get delivered across the show. The interactions we see between Keyfree and his apprentices. There's some very tender moments and some very, I guess, just enlightening moments for us to see and how we should deal with, raising these young children up. How do we support them in their own growth and you kind of nurture them to become the best we can be? It's really cool to see how Keyfree handles that. And then in the later episodes, there's this big test taking arc where some of the apprentices have to go through a test in order to become a full-fledged witch. And it's during this test where we see the theme of you can take the test as you are. Even if you don't feel like you're ready, you can still take the test, and you do the spells that you want to do, and if you fail, then well, you have knowledge for the future, and that's a really important mentality to show, and they contrast that by having a character who is deathly afraid of getting it wrong, of not doing the right thing, of not having the correct solution in front of them. And by building this contrast, they're able to depict a theme that I think is really important for all of us. As adults, we still face these quote unquote tests in our day-to-day life. So yeah, I'm really impressed by everything this show has done in its first season. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I'm really excited to see what the I guess the villains in the show have in store. They're still a mysterious group of people. The stuff they've done in the show so far does make them feel quite scary, but I don't even think we've seen like the tip of the iceberg yet. So really excited to see where that goes. It really does present some new ways and new characters that I haven't seen before in anime, and yeah, and it does it all very well. It is kind of, I'll say, it is kind of a slow burn kind of show. I would it's not really like free Rin, but some of the episodes, the way you experience them, I think are similar to free Rin. But I think when it does get to these high octane parts, it's hard to put down, and it does a really great job throughout. And so my rating for Witch Hat Atelier is a 9.5 out of 10. I think anyone that enjoys watching anime, anyone who enjoys watching fantasy anime, should definitely check out this show. I think this is a show that competes with any of the top dogs that have been released in recent memory. I think it is a very enjoyable experience.